Welcome to the Eat, Train, Prosper podcast, where we provide you sustainable training principles for strength and building muscle, effective nutrition practices for improving and maintaining a lean physique, and practical lifestyle habits for becoming a champion of your own health, both inside and out. Hosted by Aaron Straker and Brian Borstein. Welcome back to another episode of Eat, Train, Prosper. Today is Brian and myself, and we are going to be talking about our diets. We are both either have recently started or are starting this week, either mini cuts or full-blown calorie deficit periods. And we're going to kind of dig into that a little bit and then answer one really cool question we got from someone on Instagram this week. But before we dive into all of that, Brian, what is going on with you?
Life's good, man. We've had really good weather. I've been averaging 12 or 13,000 steps just being outside, chasing the kids around, going to the park. Shot some baskets the other day. I haven't done that in like 2 years, and that was my sport growing up. So I took the ball to the court, and my mom watched the kids while I got to like shoot hoops for 30 minutes. And man, I was out of breath. I'm really out of shape. But it was really fun. So I think that I might start trying to incorporate a little bit more of that, just at kind of like a leisure level. One of actually the cool things that I've talked to some other friends of mine from high school who we used to play basketball with together. They don't play like pickup games too much anymore because they're busy like me, but they have these like competitions they do with themselves where they'll shoot like, they'll set a timer and they have to get to like 50 3-pointers or 100 free throws or something like that as quickly as possible. So it's almost like a CrossFit version of basketball where you get like out of breath and it's like cardio, but you're also kind of like working on a skill. So I don't know. I'll see how my cut goes coming up, but might include some of that. And then we had Brandon on the podcast last week, which was super cool. Just dropped this week today as we speak. So he talked a lot about like energy flux and stuff like that, which is really cool and I think really relevant to the question that we have that came in from Instagram that we'll tackle later on. And at the beginning of the episode with Brandon, I quickly dropped that I bought a Pendulum squat machine. So now I'm going to take a moment and I'm going to talk about how excited I am for this. So I currently have this like hack leg press hybrid machine that I really like, and it's awesome. But it's kind of like, to me, it feels very leg pressy. Just in the way that like the upper body has to engage. It's like very dependent upon like a hard grip and staying really rigid and tight in the upper body. And you don't get that like deep stretch of the quad at the bottom like you do in a really good hack squat machine.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking. I know you
Yeah,
know what I'm talking about.
The gym here is the first time. Like I've used it 3 times. They have the Precor like hack. The same thing you have, different company makes it.
Okay.
But yeah, it agrees. It's not so much like a hack squat, even though the motion is like that, but it feels more leg press. You know, you can't kind of get buried in it type of thing like you will in a hack squat. It is very different.
I didn't know that you had one of those there. That's awesome. I didn't know you had tried it.
Yeah.
Cool. Very cool. So I bought a pendulum squat. And if you don't know what a pendulum squat is, anybody listening, I highly encourage you to get on the internet and Google pendulum squat, because it puts your body in like what I would consider to be like the most optimal range of motion and setup to get as deep as possible in your squat. Even people with shitty ankle dorsiflexion can crush their quads in this machine. So I bought one. It's 91 inches long, which is like 7.5 feet. And my current machine is like 5 feet. So I'm going to find 2.5 feet of extra space, but I'm definitely not going to be able to have both machines, unfortunately. So I think I'm going to have to take apart and disassemble the leg press, assemble the pendulum squat, use that one for a year or however long I feel like I should go until I get the desire to rebuild the other machine again. But I'm really excited to have options, and I've always wanted a pendulum squat. So I'm really excited to incorporate that into training whenever it arrives and I can get it together.
Yeah, that's really cool. A little bit of update on me. So we being Jenny, my girlfriend, and I are going to be spending summer in Salt Lake City for real this time. Not like last time when I said it and then we hadn't looked at Airbnbs yet. We booked it, so we're booked basically June, July, and August. all in Salt Lake City. And what I'm also excited to share is, of course, I hopped on Google and was pre-searching gyms because I'm not going into a location blind on what the gym situation looks like. And there's a gym with a pendulum squat, so I am very, very excited as well. So
Yes, amazing.
yeah, I have about a month and a half left here in Austin, and Austin's been really, really cool actually. And we were kind of like on the fence, like should we stay or should we go somewhere else? And it's just gonna get really, really hot, and that was the whole reason we left Mexico, because it was just too goddamn hot. And so we're like, okay, let's head somewhere new, see a little bit more adventure type stuff, and I'm really excited about that. We're gonna be pretty close to that gym, like an 8-minute drive or something like that. So I'm really, really pumped about that. It's like a more bodybuilding style gym as opposed to like a health and fitness club, like where I'm kind of at now. So I'm really cool. I'm not that I'm really cool. It's very cool. I'm excited about that. And we're going to road trip out there too, which is cool. And
Nice.
I love a little bit of that adventure. That's kind of why we do, part of this lifestyle. So that's pretty cool. I've also found a really cool flavored water that I like here for everyone on YouTube. It's called Rambler. It's local to here in Austin. And it's just got that good lemon lime flavor. And so I've been like kind of crushing these. I find that I will drink more of that throughout the day. And then at like the gym is where I'll really put down a lot of water. I'll probably go through like 50, 60 ounces of water just at the gym. And that's just how my kind of thirst lays out naturally. But that's about it for me. We had some family in this weekend. So I was off my, just not being difficult and out eating outside my normal range. And one thing that's kind of cool that it's actually not cool at all, I wanted to kind of bring up is people, when you're eating out or really outside the norms of what your normal plan is or whatever, people only will think about it in terms of like calories in, calories out, and like carbs versus like weight fluctuations. And I can say for a fact that like I came in like low on calories, like not substantially, but both days. And by, Monday morning, my weight was up almost 3 pounds. And that's really just to go to show that there's much more at play than just your calories in, calories out, carbohydrate. There's weight shifts. And a lot of that's going to be like inflammation. I can tell when I get like bloated, my stomach gets like rock hard just from eating different foods and stuff that I wouldn't normally, and having less control over my basically intake. So that was interesting to see, kind of reinforce some confirmation bias I was already aware of. But today I was right back down. It's Tuesday morning, so generally about 24 hours, 48 hours of getting back onto your stuff, focusing on sleep and stuff. Your body will kind of right itself as long as you remove those offending foods and stuff. So just kind of cool to talk about some tidbits for the listeners there. But you ready to get into these mini cuts and the calorie deficit topics?
Yeah, real quick. Do you know the brand name of your pendulum squat in Salt Lake City? Did you happen to catch that?
I mean, it is I want to say it's either Atlantis or
Arsenal.
man, Arsenal. Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably Arsenal, because isn't it? I think Atlantis is like, I'm pretty much making stuff up. It's a Australian company, maybe a European company.
I don't know the answer, but I know that the Arsenal one to me looks like blockier and like more sturdy, and the Atlantis one looks like a little more sleek, kind of.
Yeah.
So I don't know, for whatever that's worth.
Yeah. If anything, if like kind of oh boy, what's the word I'm looking for? Like common knowledge tells me anything, the Arsenal is American because it's massive and overbuilt and everything kind of traditional
Yes.
American style.
Yes.
And then the Atlantis, which may be from, Europe or Australia, don't quote me here, is basically built as it, needs to be built, not as like let's make this thing massive and reinforce it with like incredible amounts of steel that it can hold 9,000 pounds, even though you can really not load the pendulum squat too high because it's so incredibly difficult.
Yeah, I think the most I've
Yeah.
ever seen anyone do on that was like 5 plates for a set of like 8 or something, and that's a lot of weight on there.
Yeah, it is very humbling how it just like, it's strange because it puts you in like a good position, but it's also really, really challenging because you can't load a lot of weight on it at all.
Yeah. It's interesting the contrast between the leg press machine that I currently have, and like I had to go out and buy all these extra 100-pound plates just so that I could make that machine challenging. And now I'm going to replace it with the pendulum squat, and I'm not going to be able to use my 100-pound plates at all.
Yeah. Yeah, it's cool. The resistance profile on the pendulum squat is just very, very unique, and I mean it's awesome. I mean if I had to choose one thing I could use for legs, 100% pendulum squat.
For sure. Pendulum squat and an RDL, and I think you cover like
Sorry.
the front and the back side.
Yeah, I meant like quads or a
No,
squat.
no, no, for sure, for sure. I was just thinking in my head, like if I was doing a bare bones program, like you could just do like 5x5 of each of those, or 5x8 or something like that, and be good to go.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, let's talk about your diet. You're in a mini cut. You are in week 3 or 4 now.
Oh boy, I think 3, potentially starting week 4. Yeah. So mini cut is the plan, but it might just kind of transform into like maybe an 8-week, 10, 12-week type of thing. I kind of have a look, an image I would like to do better than from when we were in Colombia, which was I was like, that picture I used for that thing we submitted for ABLE, right? The estimating body composition stuff. In my opinion, that's the best I've ever looked. I went back through my, weight logs and stuff. So we're talking now, it was December of 2019. And I was 194 pounds. It was actually like 193.9 something, because I was living internationally, so my scale was in kilograms. But
what do you weigh right now?
This morning I was 203 and change. I don't remember the exact one.
And your high point was it 208? Was your
207? 207.5 was my high point.
Okay, and you're 202 or 203 now. And what's the lowest you've been on this mini cut? Is this the lowest now since the bloat that you had?
No, I had 202 something last week. Like a 202.4 or something. Yeah. So I'm down 4 or 5 pounds, which is like, it's about, I think this is the start of week 4. So about a pound of week or so, give or take. And that's, I don't have a lot to go, really. I kind of stay within striking distance, just because I don't know, I've been big, I've been 227 pounds, and I really just got a lot fatter. I think you can't force feed hypertrophy, especially at this part of our, lifting careers and stuff. It's a slow road. Realistically, I'm hoping I can achieve that same kind of leanness and body composition from that picture I was talking about at maybe a half pound to a pound heavier.
Right.
At the end of the day, like that is the nature of the game when you've been lifting for, approximately 20 years and you're still a natural, and you don't have like freak of nature, free testosterone or anything like that. Like genetically, I'm nothing special. Just been doing it a long time, and have, learn a little bit more every time, and try and leverage that to my best ability, and just get a little bit better that no one will notice but myself. But I can, kind of chalk that up as a win for my, personal development, physical development, and help apply that to my clients and stuff. At this point, it's really all the glory I have to chase, I suppose.
No, we're our own experiment at this point, and it really is like the things that we can use our body as a means of discovering new tools that we can then use for clients. So I'm fully on board with all of that.
Yeah. But I mean, from like a calorie standpoint, I'm still eating a lot of food, over 3,000. Even on my low day, I still have 290 grams of carbohydrate. So, I mean, I'm at a point now where like, I'm not hungry, like by any stretch of the imagination. I still need to plan and to get all of my food in. Like yesterday, Mondays are hard because they're my like super busy work day, and I need to be like, okay, it's noon, like I need to get a second meal in, because it's a timing game against the clock, really. So I mean, I still have so much food to eat, so it's pretty cool. It's a testament to kind of like the methodologies that I've kind of formulated myself, which come a lot from Jason Theobald, who's been my coach. The things that he's kind of opened me up to and challenged me to do, and it's just pretty cool to see, like, when you really do your due diligence for a very, very large portion of the year. Again, I've been increasing calories for 8 months straight, up to over 4,000, daily, except on my, rest day, which was just nice at that point, to be completely honest, enough to eat so much. But when you do your due diligence, when you pay attention to your health, when you get your blood work taken semi-regularly, and you understand that everything is going on, when you manage your stressors, your lifestyle, your sleep, etc., when you do go to, go into fat loss phases, like, unless you have autoimmunity or gut health or some thyroid condition or whatever, which are, not as common, but becoming more common with, the way culture and stuff is moving. But it just kind of works, which is nice. When you have the correct tools and a new phrase that one of my clients used this week that I really like: when you choose your weapons wisely at the grocery store, like how you spend your carbohydrate and your fats and stuff, it's really, you're just plugging numbers in and playing the waiting game of time and resources to really reach there. And I do like that. It's just executing and knowing that it will work.
Choose your weapons wisely. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
One thing I'm dying to know, a few episodes ago, we talked about you wanting to adjust your training, and you proposed a full body design. So let's get the update. What's going on with your training these days?
Dude, I love it. I love the full
Okay.
body. And
Okay.
what's really cool, or I guess, yeah, what's really cool. So there was let me back up a little bit. There was a period when I was about 26 or so. For the listeners, I'm 33 now, where I felt like I was like, okay, at this point, I'm 26. I started lifting, like 5 days per week consistently when I was 14. I've been training for 12 years. Like, I know this game type of thing. And that was back when like ego was still part of my life. And now looking back on it, like I've learned so much about training, like just in the last year. It's crazy to me to think that I knew so much back then, because I really didn't know fuck all, to be completely honest.
Yeah.
And I'm just now kind of realizing like how much there still is to learn, especially just through like these weekly conversations with you and like different people you've kind of opened my eyes to and stuff. So I'm like, the full body never really made sense to me. I'm like, what? Like, I can't, like, I'm not going to be able to do enough work for like my back or something like that in one day, unless I'm doing like 5 or 6 or 7 sets or something like that. And it was really just, again, ego and me being a little bit ignorant to things that I didn't yet know or try. And man, I have to say, I am a big fan of it. And here's, I would say, the biggest reason why. And we've talked about this a little bit previously on the podcast. For me, I have a threshold of like how much effort I can really put in on a given body part or something. So let's say we're talking about chest, right? I am not going to go like balls out. Let's say I'm doing like 3 chest exercises, right? First one's like an incline dumbbell press. Second one's like a fly sort, and then a third one would be like, I don't even know, maybe like chest focused dips or something like that. I'm not going to go all out on that first one because I know I'm going to be worthless by the second and third exercise. And then I'm kind of shooing those in. I'll dramatically drop weight, or I'll cut my reps short just because I'm like kind of blown up. But now, since I'm only doing like one movement per day, I can really like swing for the fences on it and like give it my all, and know that like I got 3 sets and I'm done type of thing. And I really like that. And it kind of, the volume is something that you have to kind of titrate to your individual, basically recovery capacity and training age a little bit. But I have to say, I have really been a fan of it.
So you don't feel like there's any suffering, because you alluded to basically being like, if I had a third chest exercise, that it would receive, barely any focus. There's no suffering when you go like movement 1, movement 2, and you're like killing big compounds, and then you go like movement 3, 4, 5, and even though they're for different muscle groups, like you don't feel that kind of cumulative fatigue.
No, not really. And
Okay.
I guess maybe that is a little bit to how I've structured it. Legs are always first.
Of course.
Legs are always first. And then on days that there's like squat pattern movement, I actually do calves before to help with that ankle dorsiflexion.
Yeah, for sure.
To kind of loosen that up. And then like, depending on the movement, I will do sometimes hamstrings before like a squat pattern movement or a quad. Like for instance, like an RDL, right? It's much more demanding. We want to hit it kind of fresher. And then I'll move into my larger body parts second. And then like arms and shoulders are usually last, just because they're smaller.
For sure.
They require less like total. They're not like as centrally fatiguing or require less overall demand, in my opinion, at least.
How did you arrange? How did you end up finally settling on the structure for the leg stuff? Because how we talked about like the you were like gonna go Nordics and then RDLs the next day or something like that. What'd you end up settling on?
I structured it a little bit differently. I ended up adding a 4th day. And when we were talking about it, it was only 3 total sessions, and now it's at 4. And I played around with it, ran through some of them, and I realized I forget what, but I had to move. What I ended up doing was swapping the day that had GHRs with the day that had like the 45-degree angle, like back extension.
That one's much less fatiguing. Yeah.
Exactly. But yeah, I mean, it's still, don't get me wrong, when you're doing like 15 or so, it lights your kind of like
For sure.
glutes up and hamstrings.
But you don't get as
it's
sore
not,
from it. Like it doesn't. There's not as much eccentric loading on there.
exactly. And it doesn't require like just as much like mental, capacity to perform it well. Like doing GHRs well, I mean, they're super, super challenging. So I ended up swapping that. And now I'm trying to think, the GHRs are on like the day that have like leg extensions. So something that's like much simpler single joint type of thing.
Cool. I dig
But
that.
I've been really, really enjoying it. And then how I mean, yeah, I'm thoroughly enjoying it, which is cool.
Are you going back to back days, like 2 on, 1 off, 2 on, 1 off?
I will do 2 on, 1 off, but how I have structured it is I've built in a little bit of auto regulation. So, like, let's say like I said, there's 4 sessions. So let's say after session 3, if you're like, man, the week's kind of cumulatively built up on me, I'm not ready for that 4th session, just take an extra rest day and push it to the next day.
Are you getting sore?
The first couple days I was super sore. In certain places more than others. Like some of the movements, I'm still kind of finding my reps a little bit.
Yeah.
And I wanted to start lighter and hit the higher rep ranges just to kind of make sure, since I'm doing some of the things like supersets, like chest and back, I'll superset some days. I wanted to make sure that I wouldn't do like, 12 reps on set 1 and then on set 3 I was getting like 6 and stuff.
Yeah.
So I have started a little bit lighter. Some of the leg stuff I was able to push a little bit more soon, push harder sooner because I was more dialed in, and I'm not supersetting the leg stuff just because it's basically incapacitating. Yeah. But yeah, I'm a little bit sore. I have taken 3 days off, which isn't in the plan, but like I said, we had family in town, and then I stopped training on Mondays for work reasons. So it's been, I haven't trained since Thursday.
Wow.
Or no, Friday. I'm sorry.
You're going to feel crush it today after the podcast.
Yeah. So I'm excited to go eat, hit my my pre-workout and go get after it today.
I like that. Very cool.
Yeah.
Do you have more to add to your mini cut?
Yeah, I guess I'll talk about it a little bit. So the what I really have started doing, and this has been something that was honestly influenced by our conversation with Brandon, and also coupled with, I recently got a watch that tracks my steps. I've been really trying to push my steps more. And really what it has been is just like scheduling a little bit, getting me outside the house. I have historically have a little bit of a bad tendency to just like, oh shit, 6 hours have gone by and I haven't got up from my computer type of thing. So now I've been pushing that. I've been getting around like 12,000 per day.
Nice.
And I've really just been enjoying them. Like some of them, and this is like, I will literally take like a 4-minute walk after a meal. I'll like finish eating. I'll put my shit in the dishwasher. I'll walk up to the end of the street and back. And it's just nice to like get outside a little bit more, especially here. Like it's spring now. The weather's been pretty nice. And I've really been enjoying that. And I'm going to push that a little bit more. And then really I can eat a lot more food. And in that, and kind of following up with, everything Brandon said, we can eat more food, right? With that higher energy flux, you will likely not experience as much downregulation, adaptation. I'm also going to get blood work done. It's been a little bit too, and then that'll just give me so much more information, right? And we'll kind of get into that a little bit, when we talk about yours, but I call it the cheat codes, right? When you learn how to read blood work and understand what certain things mean, it's like, don't get me wrong, I feel great, right? But that's a subjectivity. I could feel great and my LDL cholesterol could be through the roof, or my triglycerides could be super up, or my fasting blood glucose or insulin. All these things could be off, and it's really just a little bit of like reassurance of what I'm doing is working. Because let's say, I'm planning this mini cut, I'm planning on getting lean. I get some blood work that comes back, tells me that I know what my testosterone's generally at. I'm nothing special there. Every time I've gotten it done, I'm 550 to like 620 is basically what I come in at. Let's say it comes back in like the mid fours, right? Tells me I've been fucking something up. Maybe I've been working too much. My sleep has, my sleep quality's decreased. Different kind of lifestyle management things. If I go through with this deficit, it's only going to get worse, and then I'm probably not going to beat what I was hoping to beat because I'm starting from a worse point. So That's something, I don't think enough people want to pay attention to. And I don't know, sometimes people just don't want to go talk to their doctor, or people don't want to pay out of pocket. But the way I look at it, the blood work that I pull for myself, it's between $200 and $270 depending on when it's on sale. I believe it's on sale right now, last time I checked. You run that at max 4 times per year. For most people, probably only twice. You're talking about $400 to $800 to know what's going on in your body, especially for people who are listening to this podcast, that are interested and invested in their healths and stuff. I think that's a no-brainer in my personal opinion.
So let's just do the lab stuff now. We were going to talk about this during my cut stuff,
Okay.
but I'm
Yeah.
curious about this. So do you get them online? Like someone sends something to you and then you send the sample back type thing?
Yep. Yeah.
What do you use? What do you use?
So I use Life Extension. Life Extension is like a big supplement company that's been around for like ages. So I use their comprehensive weight loss panel, and it is in my. Let me check right now. I can kind of pull it up and see what the price is. So it's still on sale. It's $206, right? And this is $206 US.
Okay.
I've been hard pressed to find anything that is a more aggressive price point for what you're getting here. So I have the website up, right? You're getting, and this is depending on who you are, you might need to maybe add something on top of this or change a couple things, but you get your sex hormones, right? So you get free and total testosterone, you get DHEA sulfate, which is a precursor to testosterone in males. In females as well, just a little bit different of pathways there. You get estradiol, which is obviously super important for women, but it's important as men too, to see if you're aromatizing a lot of your testosterone into estrogen or not. And you get progesterone, which again is going to be very important for females as well. The one kind of quick caveat I will add there, not that I want to go super, super deep on blood work right now, but I know a fair share of women listen to the podcast. If you are on hormonal birth control, your estrogen, your estradiol, and your progesterone will be kind of way off. So just kind of know that there. You get a pretty sweet, comprehensive suite on your thyroid hormones, right? So you get your TSH, you get free T3, free T4, and then reverse T3, which can be indicative of like stressor as well. The two things it doesn't really contain there are your thyroid antibodies. So if you are concerned about potential Hashimoto's, an autoimmune kind of condition there, it's not going to give you those, but you can add that additionally. You get serum cortisol for a stress hormone, which again, going into a diet can be pretty beneficial because let's say my cortisol was like super high, right? That means I'm going to be in a more catabolic state. As I go into calorie deficit, it's only going to get worse. So that one's really nice. And then you get 3 markers on insulin resistance. So you get actually 4 technically. You have your fasting blood glucose comes back as part of your metabolic panel. You get fasting insulin, which is really important to compare to your fasting your fasting blood glucose. And you also get hemoglobin A1C, which is basically like a 30 or like a 90-day snapshot of what your blood glucose values are throughout the day. And then in combination of that, you're going to get your complete metabolic panel on like white blood cell count, red blood cell count, and a lot more just important like health factors in that regard. You get a lipid panel, cholesterol, full stuff there, CBC. You also get a vitamin D test, which is very strangely not covered by a lot of insurances, or then they'll charge you like $200 extra to add it on when you go to your doctor. But here, paying out of pocket, you're getting this entire suite of labs for $200, which is like mind-boggling, really. And then you get C-reactive protein, a high sensitivity C-reactive protein, which is going to tell you like general systemic inflammation in your body. So again, it's really, really aggressively priced for everything that you get. And I run this on myself when I have clients whose doctors won't order them more than like a TSH or say, oh, you're, in your 30s, your testosterone's fine. We don't need to check it. It's frustrating for clients, right? Because you have this health insurance that you pay for. And then when you go to use it, they're like, oh, you don't qualify based on someone else's predetermined metrics of like when it's acceptable to order or not. So I'm not going to let you use your health insurance. But a lot of people don't know that you can order this stuff on yourself. And then what I usually recommend people do is like order it, take it to your doctor, and and have them interpret it for you, and then kind of help you out with that if they don't want to know. But it's one of those things that's if you want to know, I'm a very big advocate of being a champion of your own health and understanding these own things. You are empowered to order your own blood work and then take it to your doctor. Or when your doctor doesn't want to play ball, go find a doctor who will.
So I fully support that agenda. I actually tell people all the time that they should do blood work twice a year, and I have not been following my own advice. It's been a number of years since I've had blood work. So I had a test right before I stood on stage in 2015, and my it was like a week before. I just wanted to know how bad it
It's like
was.
the worst time to get blood work.
So everything was bad, of course, but my testosterone was under 150, and so then I had one maybe like a year or two after the competition, and it was still only up to like, I think it was high 300s or low 400s, which isn't like great considering I was mid 30s at the time.
Yeah.
So one of the reasons I haven't had one is it sounds so lazy. It's time. I didn't I like didn't want to take the hour out of my life to go to like a LabCorp and do the sample and come back and like find that hour. So the fact that I can do this online is great. And then the other reason that I didn't have it done is because I was feeling so good, and I feel like using the subjective feedback of feeling good is like really important for someone to be able to assess, even though it doesn't actually give me the data. Like, I'm very curious to see what's actually there, but like I was feeling good, training was going good, I was sleeping well, all of these different things. So I didn't feel it was like a necessity, but I still now in retrospect wish that I had these 6 month or at least 1 year snapshots of how I was at different times throughout my mid to late 30s. So I'm going to start doing this a lot more often. I appreciate you laying that out for everyone.
Yeah. One thing I want to add on there too, what's nice about this particular lab work from like Life Extension, and there's other companies that do it very similarly as well. You purchase it, right? You get like an email confirmation, and then some physician on their like team backend, right, is going to like review it, sign off on it. You get a PDF document that you literally print out. You make an appointment at your local LabCorp. I mean, LabCorp's the most commonly found one pretty much everywhere. There are a few states you cannot go through with this. I want to say it's like New York, maybe Connecticut, or there's like a couple, maybe like 3 states that you can't use this because of their local laws. But you like literally schedule an appointment. You go in one morning, you're in and out in 20 minutes, and like a week later, you have your lab work. Like, it's really streamlined, which is cool. Last thing I will add, because we've kind of got a little bit deeper on this, I would highly, highly, highly recommend the day before you get your lab work done, do not go to the gym. Take the day off of training, and also fast for about 12 to 14 hours before your blood work. There are some that say you only need to fast for like 2 to 3 hours, which I think is total BS, because that's not fasting. Like, 2 hours is not a fast. Because you're paying the money, right? You want to get the most, kind of accurate data we can, and you can skew a lot of this, right? Let's say you had like a monster meal of, carbohydrate the night before you went to bed or something like that, because you're not going to eat, for like 3 hours in the morning or something like that. Your fasting glucose is probably going to be a little bit higher. Your fasting insulin is going to be like a little bit higher. If you trained legs the day before and you like absolutely smashed your legs and you're super sore, your liver enzymes are probably going to come back pretty high. And some of these things, it might make you think like, oh my God, I have like liver damage, or I'm, at a decreased like renal capacity, all these things. And it's like, no, you just don't do sets of 15 on the hack squat the day before you go get blood work. So take like 12 to 14 hours fast. Go in, stay hydrated, make sure you're hydrated, and you should be able to get like pretty clear interpretation from your labs. You won't be kind of skewing them with any of your things you do beforehand, pretty much.
Sweet. I may do this like ASAP. That's awesome. Good call.
Of course.
So my diet just started pretty much today. Yesterday was the day, Monday. I put the post up on Instagram that the diet started that day. In reality, it probably started a couple days prior. I started kind of cleaning things up maybe in the last week, so it wasn't just like eat like shit over the weekend and then suddenly Monday diet time, yeah. So I had been cleaning it up a little bit. The peak body weight that I was at, maybe it was like 2 weeks ago, I got up to 199.6 for a hot minute, for like a day. But I've had in the last month, I've had a number of readings in the 198s. So I'm going to pretty confidently say that I'm starting my diet in the high 190s. We'll just say high 190s, right under 200. And already from like 3 or 4 days of just cutting crap out, I'm down to 195.5 this morning. So that's like 3 or 4 pounds in a matter of a couple of days, just from going to bed a little bit hungry and kind of doing the things that I deem important to create a caloric deficit. So one of the things I said on my Instagram post, which is the first time I'm going to try this, but I'm not going to track anything until I have to track something. And I don't know if it's going to work. I think that it'll work. I think I have a really solid grasp on these things. And I'm really excited to give it a go. At least for the first month or two, I think I can make solid progress without tracking at all, just using kind of subjective signals of satiety and making sure that I'm getting enough protein. So I'm really excited about that part of it.
Are you going to be tracking your weight at all in these first couple weeks?
Yeah, I'm going to weigh myself every day in the morning, just like I did last time. And I'm going to want to see 1 to 2 pounds a week, kind of progressively dump off in the early stages. So like for me, like I haven't gone to bed hungry in 7 or 8 months.
Dude,
so just the notion of going to bed hungry already, I've dropped all that glycogen and water retention in a matter of a few days. So I don't think it's going to be too hard. Another thing that I'm really kind of going to try to do this time around is follow a little bit more of a meal plan, at least in these early stages. Because while I don't think I was super food focused on the last diet in comparison to previous diets that I've done, I think that I could be less food focused. I think that in the end of a diet, you always look back on it and you're like, I could have done that better, right? So one of the ways that I think I can do that better is by implementing kind of like a pseudo meal plan. Not that I'm going to eat the exact same things every day, but have the freedom of exchanging out protein sources, like 8 ounces of chicken for 8 ounces of lean beef or 8 ounces of turkey or whatever. Starch for starch, like oatmeal for potato, for white rice. Just kind of have those switches. Eat vegetables to satiety and not track, or obviously track anything, but not worry about vegetable consumption. And just kind of try and create. What I did is I wrote an Excel sheet of like, here's my like meal 1, 2, 3, 4. And, my first 2 meals are basically liquid. So I mix Gatorade powder with whey protein is the first 2 feedings that I have. And then usually I have a Quest bar after that. So I don't actually put like real food in my body until 1 p.m. maybe, something like that. So for me, it's as simple as just my 1 p.m. meal is relatively similar to my 4 p.m. snack, which is relative, or not similar to that, but each day my 1 p.m. meal is similar to itself, my 4 p.m. snack is similar to itself, and then my 7 p.m. dinner is similar to itself. So as long as I'm kind of hitting those metrics, I'm going to bed a little hungry, I'm not eating after dinner, so I'm brushing my teeth as soon as I'm done eating. And then I'm seeing the scale, descend as I hope that it does. I think I can manage it that way. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, I think that's a really solid approach. I'm a big fan, and this is something that I don't want to say I force it on all my clients, but I like hound them until they do it. Meal frequency structure. I want you to understand how many meals per day you're eating, making things repeatable so that we can influence hunger and satiety signals based on your schedule and lifestyle, so things become more predictable. And that's pretty much exactly what you said, right? If I'm knowing I'm going to have these meals at approximately these times, things just get more predictable in that regard. And even if you aren't, like, you're not going to go down the whole of tracking very like objectively or anything for a while, just by doing that and leveraging like, okay, maybe tonight I'm super hungry as opposed to like last night I wasn't that hungry. Like what was different? And like, let's say maybe you went with like a white fish as opposed to like beef or something like that. Like there's all these little kind of like subjective tweaks or, relative differences in types of, like foods and stuff that do have some nutritional differences and caloric differences, of course. But I think, overall, you've been doing it long enough. You're going to prioritize your, whole food sources like lean, meats and different stuff. And you're not going to be like, well, I'm going to have fucking Kodiak cakes for my carbs for like 4 days straight, and then just nothing but protein shakes, and then have Skittles intra workout and stuff like that, like people try and do. So I think when you have a generally quality, and an adult like plan, it generally works out at least for a while. I mean, once you kind of get into that, you're trying to get to like, your superstar levels of lean or whatever, like you're going to have to, your margins get smaller. So you need to, kind of tighten it up. But for someone like yourself, you have the habits and stuff in place that'll be able to take you for a pretty far while before you really need to tighten things up.
Yeah, for sure. To what one of the things you said about how some night I might just find myself really hungry versus other nights, and like why that might be. And the first thing that popped into my head was I may have just done like a really hard leg workout and gotten 14,000 steps. And then I eat my normal amount of food and I'm like, well, I feel famished, right? So along this kind of without this absence of tracking approach to this thing, I almost feel like if I found myself in that situation, I almost would just, like, if it was an amount of hunger that was more than the amount of hunger that I was targeting, like if I literally felt myself ravenous at night, I think I would probably eat. I think I would probably have something that was protein heavy, like maybe a Greek yogurt, or something like that, or maybe some meat. And I would probably satisfy that hunger with protein and feel like maybe that's a sign that my body needs it. And at the end of the day, if I have an extra 200 calories that I didn't really need, it's not going to completely halt my fat loss anyway, but it will allow me to get to bed without feeling that like lurching in my stomach that would keep me awake.
Exactly. I think depending on where you are in your, weight or fat loss kind of cycle, like let's say you're getting on stage, right, and you're in those later stages, you might need to go to bed hungry.
For sure. No, totally. Yeah.
In like a more lifestyle type approach, like the kind of decrease in sleep quality and increase in cortisol from, having a poor night of sleep and going to bed like starving and waking up in the middle of the night hungry and all that stuff, you're better off just having, some protein and some carbohydrates so that you can get a solid night of sleep, as opposed to like, no, I can't go over by, let's say you have like 20 grams of protein, which is,
Right.
Literally 80 calories, and like, let's say you do like 10, 15 grams of carbs. We're talking about like maybe 150 calories or something like that. So you can eat, and like you said, it's probably something like a super hard leg workout and high activity that sets you off or something. So yeah, I think in that regard, that is the approach I would recommend almost all people take as well.
Plus, we have all those protein overfeeding studies that basically show that you can just eat as much protein as you want and you'll just keep losing fat.
Yeah, pretty much, it's insane, but it's really cool research.
It is pretty ridiculous.
Yeah.
So I don't have a whole lot left to share on my cut, at least nutritionally. My plan is to continue training with the same kind of upper lower rest 12-day microcycle. It's just been working out really well for me, and I feel like maybe for the first time in a really, really long time, if not ever, that my volume is like exactly where it should be, and that this upper lower rest rotation is like exactly where my frequency should be. I don't know that it's my favorite, like from an enjoyment standpoint. Like there still is like a part of me that, is always looking at these push-pull legs work splits, and I'm like, ooh, but I could put delts on both upper body days, and then I could almost make it like a delt specialization thing, and then I'd be able to like, get a little bit more volume here and a little bit more there and blah, 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 and I play these like mental games in my head. But at the end of the day, it comes back to those two things I said in the beginning, that the frequency and the volume just feel so right in this setup, and that what I mean by that is that I get intra session pumps, I feel post-session fatigue, I get sore, but not really sore. I get mildly sore to the point that I'm recovered and ready to go again 3 days later when I train the same muscle group. And my sessions aren't absurdly long, which I feel like in the past I've kind of gotten into these like hour and a half, 2 hour, just kind of like grunt sessions where I'm just like doing volume and doing volume. And in this setup, it's wild how much I'm discovering how much less volume my legs need than I thought that they did. And maybe I'm realizing that my upper body kind of needs more volume than I've been giving it, because my legs, like my hamstrings, glutes, and quads, are sore from all 4 of my leg sessions, and they're sore in all 3 places, always for a day or a day and a half, and clear just in time for me to train my legs again. And I'm doing really, really low volume on my leg days. Like most of my leg days are 6 sets for quads and for hamstrings total. So 3 sets each, or 4 sets and 3 sets. So 7 sets maybe. But on my upper body days, I've been finding that I'm actually not getting sore at all. And while I am getting like a little bit of a pump in the session, I don't really feel that same like post-session fatigue that I get from the legs. So there's like a part of me that's wondering like, man, maybe I really do need to get a little bit more upper body volume. And maybe this low volume approach that I'm doing is great for my legs, but maybe my upper body doesn't respond the same way. So these are kind of things that I will be playing with, or at least noting over the next few weeks and months. But at least for right now, I'm gonna keep the split the way that it is, and ride that as long as I can.
Yeah. One last question I have for you: are you training abs now that you are in a calorie deficit?
No, I'm not, but I think I'm gonna start. That is funny because it always is when I get in the calorie deficit that I train them, because you can see them; they're actually fun again.
Yeah.
No, I really don't like training abs at all, to be honest. My last diet, my coach programmed them twice a week, twice per microcycle, and I would maybe do them once every other microcycle. So once every 2 weeks I would do abs, and they would get so sore because I never did them.
Same.
And I always hear people say these things like, oh, abs are like, a small muscle group that you can train every day. And that might be true if you actually like, build up the tolerance to it. But for whatever reason, like we talk about, volume, muscle groups have different minimum effective volumes, or maintenance volumes more specifically. I think maintenance volume is what I was going for. And I think that the maintenance volume for abs is probably like 0. Like you don't actually, the amount of abs that you have is more or less genetic in many cases. So maybe your minimum effective volume is a certain amount of sets, but I don't know too many people that, if they were shredded and they never did abs, that they wouldn't still have some semblance of abs. All right, tell me why I'm wrong.
No, oh, sorry, no, I was agreeing with you.
Okay. Yeah. So I think that like, especially if you're doing compound barbell movements where you have to brace your core and stuff like that, you're getting plenty of isometric ab work to at least maintain whatever abs you have. And then I think even if you do any ab work, even once every 2 weeks, that for me at least is more than nothing. And I will legitimately see abs beginning to come through that I didn't see before. But to your point, I always do that while I'm dieting. So is it the addition of the ab work, or is it the shedding of the body fat, or is it a combination of both? I don't know.
I do think it's a combination of both. I mean, let's face it. They're another set of muscles, right? You train them, they will develop to some degree. How much I can't say for certain. I personally just don't like it. You know why? I don't like the way it feels. Right?
Oh, it's terrible.
And then what happens a lot to me is they'll cramp up when I'm like turning around and backing up in the car.
Yep.
And it's awful. It's an awful feeling.
It's like a spasm almost, and it turns to a rock, right?
Yeah, it just completely knots up.
Yeah.
But I will say, like, I haven't consistently trained them, but I've started twice a week. I will.
Okay.
And I'll usually do one a little bit more like upper focused, right? I'll tell you exactly what I do. It is very rare that I do abs outside of an ab wheel, which is my favorite, or a type of dead bug, which I found out I happen to just do dead bugs wrong and thought that's how you did them, which is the opposite. So I will do dead bugs, but I will switch feet at the bottom. So like a real dead bug is like your when your knees are up is when you switch the legs, but I do them switching legs at the bottom. So one is always in that extended position.
That's probably harder.
It's significantly harder.
Yeah,
and then I will force to keep my lower back flat into the ground, which helps you work on some like lower back positioning as well. They're really, really gnarly. And those are basically my ab exercises. It's rare I'll do something outside of that unless I'm like training with someone or something like that. But I know I get lean enough and I have abs, and maybe if I train them consistently, they might be like the slightest bit better when I'm leaner, but I can't say for certain or for not.
You know how I know that I get abs trained throughout other movements? is the other day I did a body weight tricep extension. You know, these where like you put your feet on the ground and you do like a skull crusher
Yeah.
to a barbell, right? So I did those for the first time in a while, and I haven't been training abs, and I haven't done that movement. And my abs were sore for 3 days, no lie. Like I could not do a proper sit up off the ground without like being in pain to get up from 2 sets of body weight leg extension or body weight tricep extensions.
I will find if I ever do like not even like super heavy, but like heavier like dual hand tricep extensions where your like back's not supported and I need to like brace, I
Yep,
will get
yep.
sore from those for sure.
Yep. No,
Yeah.
no doubt, dude. The abs get used so much, and you just don't really think about it, I guess. Like even on my leg
Yeah.
press, I know that I'm using my abs a ton as I like kind of brace against the weight in a leg press. So it's happening all the time.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, let's get into this question real quick. So this is from a client of the Evolve program. It is a female, but I think we're gonna kind of answer it a little bit more generally so that it can kind of be applied to males or females. So this lady just finished a cut. She dropped 17 or 18 pounds of body weight, and she believes that she's now around 19 or 20% body fat, which we'll say is somewhere between 10 and 12% for males. You pretty good with that? Something around 12% I think is pretty safe.
Potentially a little bit leaner for females. But yeah, around that. It's not, it's somewhat subjective based on different people hold it a little bit
Yeah,
differently,
yeah, yeah.
but generally about like 8 to 12% higher than your male numbers is where it will be about equal for females.
Cool. So 12% and 20% is going to be pretty solid.
Yeah.
Cool. The what she wrote is, I've felt really good through my cut. I'm just ready to not be so scale focused. I really want to feel good and maintain similar leanness to where I'm at. She also noted that she wanted some freedom on the weekends to be social, to go out, things like that. So do you want to take a first stab at this, and then I have some notes and I can kind of come back after that?
Yeah. So kind of the first thing I will say is when you are in the end of a cut or finishing a cut, you are what I would like to describe as vulnerable. You are vulnerable for rebound and slingshotting kind of weight and fat back on if you do not do your due diligence. What happens is people will kind of be like, oh my God, it's over. Like, thank you. And then I can have like, pizza or all these foods, maybe restricted from yourself. I said maybe, I'm not sure with how she did it. You want to do your due diligence and keep your activity levels high still keep doing your walks and stuff like that. And you want to slowly increase your calories week over week, every other week, something, however you deem necessary, and get back to what is an approximate maintenance calories for you. Know that approximate maintenance calories is going to be a moving target depending on how active you are, what type of training you're doing, etc. Once you get into that like ballpark number, you can kind of open things up a little bit. If for someone like this who wants to be a little bit more flexible on the weekends, you can do like a 5-2, like a little bit under maintenance Monday through Friday, and then have like basically refeed days, Saturday, Sunday, or Friday, Saturday, and just kind of give yourself 2 sets of numbers to kind of work with. Since you said I don't want to be so scale focused, you can put it away for a little bit if you think that's going to help you and just leverage how you look and feel. What I really like is there is this period after you finish a cut, right? People think they look the best when they're at the end of the cut. You look your best like a few weeks after, depending on what you're doing, because you are still technically in a deficit as you are going through that reverse phase, but you are refilling out fluids, glycogen, which is making your muscles basically appear fuller and larger. So you will have put on like some level of body fat, but the majority of the weight that you have put back on is really intracellular, extracellular fluid, intramuscular triglyceride type of things like that, and you look better. So I would leverage how you look and feel, how you look in the mirror, and how your training and stuff is going. A lot of these things you'll basically get these almost week over week improvements as these adaptations begin to upregulate again. And then once you feel like you're kind of maybe happy with that and you're satiated again, more or less, you can kind of transition into a kind of like a higher lower type of day. So, or sorry, type of week. So maybe, like I said, your Monday through Thursday, you might be a little bit tighter with your food. Maybe you even track it continually or something like that. And then on the weekends, you just kind of eat with some intuition and know that there's going to be higher days, pretty much refeed days. One thing I would say is I would recommend keeping your activity higher on the weekends as well. I wouldn't just like, watch Netflix all day and have like ice cream and shit like that. But especially as we're coming into summer, like get outside, go on walks, maybe do activities in the water if something's nearby, but like eat more freely, eat more calorically dense foods, things you've been kind of missing out on, alcohol, etc., if that's your thing, but just also incorporate more just being outside and general activity because it will help offset that to, some degree. So that's kind of what I have on here for some general guidance for someone. Brian, what do you have to add to that?
Yeah, all really well said. I actually really like the notion of getting to the 4 days low with the three kind of more untracked days. I think that's really cool, and that's something that I did not have on my list. So well said there. I think it's important to point out that while she is lean at what we're 12 or 20% for male female, it's not like absurdly lean. Like it is within the kind of boundaries of what I would say is sustainable with certain lifestyle modifications to just doing whatever you want all the time. So high energy flux lifestyle is kind of what the thing you said, just having more movement. I would refer you back to the podcast from last week where we talked to Brandon because he went on about a 30-minute monologue about all of the benefits of high energy flux. So definitely check all that out. I think it makes a lot of sense, and I find that I do the same in my life. Ways you can do that, like he said, are just parking as far away as possible, going, like Aaron said earlier, going for a 5-minute walk after meals. Like every meal, every time you finish eating, you're just like, okay, 5 minutes. Like I need 5 minutes before whatever I do next. I'm just going to go take a 5-minute walk. Just create more activity in your life. And I think there is something that I know there's not science, at least that I know of, that validates this, but for whatever reason, it seems to me that if you just even walk a little bit after meals, it just seems to help the digestion process and the food, maybe assimilate, maybe nutrient partitioning,
It does.
something along those lines. Is there science to that?
Yeah, there's science on it. I mean, the science is generally not in your fitness populations. It's more like your type 2 diabetics, people with insulin sensitivity issues and stuff. But even though it's extrapolated at a population that's not who we're generally speaking to, I would say the mechanisms of action and physiology should hold up. Probably not to as an advantageous of a degree, but still beneficial nonetheless.
For sure, I agree with that. On the aspect of splitting calories throughout the week, like I said, I really like what Aaron proposed. I was going to reference the Campbell study, which is the five low days and the 2 high days, which he also suggested. I think the 4 and the 3 ultimately is going to be a little bit more sustainable, though. And then the other option that I was going to throw out there, because this is kind of my preferred option, is to have 1 to 2 like really, really low calorie days so that you can eat above maintenance calories on the other 5 or 6 days. And I think that this is very individually specific. Like it works really well for me as a male to fast. I don't know if that would work quite as well for a female if you're the person listening to this and thinking about instituting it. So you would have to play around with it and see how it goes for you. But I really like that just because it means that you get to eat a lot more food on the majority of days. And there's something about the mindset being that I get to do the less stressful, more enjoyable thing more often than the example of like, okay, I have 5 low days just so I can have these 2 like higher days and enjoy my weekend. But then as soon as the weekend's over, you're back to this like emotional state of like, fuck, now I'm back to eating really low calories again. So I almost would rather like fast for an entire day, like a 24 or 36 hour fast, and then be able to eat a little bit more freely on the other days. Personal preference on my part for sure.
Yeah, 2 things I want to add onto that. The first being like if you wanted to do like a fasting type of day, or maybe even like a protein sparing modified fast, where you really just have like protein and vegetables or something like that. So here's the thing. If you are like, hey, I'm happy with my body composition, I'm happy with my body fat, I'm not trying to like gain, I'm not trying to lose, I basically just want to like stay where I'm at. I think these approaches are much more kind of conducive to like lifestyle management, weight management, as opposed to when you're trying to gain or lose, because they're just they're more variables to manage. That was the first thing I wanted to add. Secondly, specifically because the lady asking is a female, and I know we have a decent amount of women that listen to this podcast, for those leaner body compositions, I think it's really important to consider what position you're at in your life. For instance, if you are maybe if you are off birth control and are planning to maybe be getting pregnant or something like that, this may not be as appropriate of a recommendation for you. You may need to realistically put on a little bit more body fat to be in a safer position to conceive and to carry a child. Mm-hmm. So I think that's just one big caveat I wanted to say. If you are on different types of hormonal birth controls, maybe specifically like a high type of high hormone birth control, it may be harder to maintain that leaner body composition just because of the hormone levels that are in your body. So again, it's one of the, I don't want to call it a disadvantage, but there are more variables at play for women than the male physiology with some of these things. So it is just a little bit of a caveat I wanted to bring up, because it may be significantly more difficult, or maybe it doesn't align with your overall, what you want out of your life, right? Maybe you, like I said, you're at a part where you want to have a child in the next 6 to 8 months or something like that. You're going to want to be focused on eating more, making sure you're at a safe body fat level to conceive and carry a child. And that, again, comes down to what is most important to you with your kind of lifestyle.
For sure. Yeah, this lady specifically, I think, has a 12 or 14-year-old or something like that. So
get shredded, lady. Get shredded.
Yeah, totally. Okay, so I had a couple more notes. I was gonna say, keep the habits in place from the diet as much as you can. Things like continuing to eat vegetables because they're satiating. Keep quality carbohydrate sources in your diet. Try not to eat foods that beget eating more of the same shitty foods, right? So we know that sugar is addictive. When you abstain from sugar, you tend to not want sugar, and fruit tastes really, really good. But once you've had sugar, then fruit is it's kind of sour. It's not that great. I don't know. So I think that's important.
Yeah.
Do you have thoughts on that?
I'm in one of those phases. So, I mean, things happen we moved a month and a half ago or whatever, and I haven't had any candy in a while. It just hasn't come up. And I have been having about one per day, those little Halo tangerines. Yep. And man, let me tell you, it is the highlight of my day. This is incredible. And I'm why haven't I been buying these? Or I know I haven't been buying them because we didn't have them in wherever we were living. But I was these are fantastic. I never remember these tasting so good. And it's really just because it's the sweetest thing I've had in probably more or less 2 months. And it's just when it's one of those things your taste buds do change when your lifestyle and nutrition habits change 100%.
For sure, yeah. A bit more of a bland diet, right? So when you do have your weekends where you want to go out and be social and eat some food, by all means do it. Don't feel like you need to abstain, but understand that when you do have those palatable foods, that it's going to beget you wanting more palatable foods. By the way, do you say palatable or palatable?
I will say palatable. But it could be it could be the opposite. I don't know for sure.
I feel like Brandon said palatable, and I didn't know what he said at first. And I think, anyways, just because it was on my brain. But anyway, palatable is how I say it. So it's palatable foods. So yeah. So I think that would also help you decrease food focus, is if you're not eating those foods that make you want to focus on them, then you're not going to focus on them as much. I also kind of like the idea of what I mentioned earlier about creating a pseudo meal plan, something where you can replace things without it having any ill effect, like proteins for proteins, starches for starches, etc. Because then you can, just know that you need a serving size, and your serving size doesn't exactly matter as long as it's within 10 or 20% of what you expect it to be. I think you're going to be fine. And if you find yourself, maybe you weigh yourself once every couple weeks or month or whatever it is, and if the scale's doing things you don't want it to do, then you can just make some small minor adjustments to the food that you're putting in your body, and you don't need to be super food focused. You just make small adjustments and you move on with life. The last thing I'll say, I want to take a little bit more of a philosophical approach to answering the question, and say that the most important part is that it's sustainable, because your goal is to sustain this lower body weight. So it's kind of like balancing two aspects. The feeling of not having to abstain, while shifting your mindset around the things that you really, really want, so that it doesn't actually feel like you're abstaining. So maybe you can avoid things that you think you want so that you can actually have the things that ultimately you really want. And hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. I mean, one of the biggest things to shifting to living a leaner lifestyle is changing your lifestyle a little bit. And I don't think that it has to be this like massive flux, but maybe you become that person who always takes like 2 to 3 walks per day. And by doing these like little lifestyle changes or sleeping 8 hours every single night, have these like massive ripple compounding effects on your lifestyle so that maybe you don't have to be quite as food focused, or things will generally begin to drift over time. I know that's one thing for myself has changed dramatically as I have become better at sleeping, as I've become better at managing my stressors, the like effort that I need to put into like the X's and O's and pulling the levers to remain leaner has changed a lot, because I'm practicing the big rocks, which I like to call, like your sleep, your stress management, your water intake, and general lifestyle factors. As you manage more of those big picture items, you need to worry less about the like nickel and diming of like robbing carbohydrates to pay for fats and like all those little things.
Totally, 100% agree with that, yeah. And then also, the last thing I'll say is I kind of follow a tiered structure of adding foods back in or eliminating foods as I'm dieting, which works really well for me. So the example I always use is like, when I'm in a full-on just off-season phase, my dinner might look like 8 ounces of beef, a burger bun with cheese on my burger, so it's like a double cheeseburger basically. I'll have some potatoes on the side, possibly with cheese on them, and then I'll have my vegetable portion. And then over the course of dieting, the first thing that'll go will probably be the cheese on the potatoes. Then I'll take the bun off the hamburger. Then I'll take the cheese off the burger. And what I'm left with is burger, bun, or burger, veggies, and potatoes. So there's no cheese and there's no bun. And I think that you can follow kind of a similar idea where you don't have to change the specific food items that you're eating as much as you can just have different things that you add into these meals or take away from these meals depending on kind of what stage of your diet you're in. Either way, I think that pretty much wraps up the podcast. So yeah, as usual, thank you guys for tuning in. Straker is still frozen, but we'll work on unfreezing him and getting him back to host this podcast next week. And catch you guys down the road.
Thank you so much for listening to Eat, Train, Prosper. If you found this episode valuable, please subscribe or share us with your friends. You can find more from Aaron at strakernutritionco.com and more from Bryan at evolvedtrainingsystems.com. Talk to you guys next time.